Hey, it's Andrew Henderson, Nomad Capitalist, with yet another reason to be banking overseas. I'm here in Missouri, Lesotho, and what a lot of people ask is why I like some of these smaller economies, especially in Eastern Europe, but some other outside of Eastern Europe, and why I speak so highly of economies in the Balkans, for instance, or Georgia. And the reason I like these places is because they've seen adversity. You go to the Balkans, you go to Serbia, you go to Montenegro, you hear stories of people having to rush to cash their paycheck because it wasn't going to be worth nearly as much as it was that afternoon. Places with hyperinflation. Parts of Eastern Europe I think have learned those lessons. They don't want to go back. Countries like Zimbabwe, near where I am now, have apparently decided they do want to go back. Add to that list India. Just last week, the president came out and said that in an effort to fight corruption and tax evasion, two most common scapegoats, that they are eliminating immediately the 1,000 and 500 rupee notes. Now, in case your rupee conversion rates are a little rusty, 1,000 rupees is about 15 US dollars, and 500 rupees is about $7-8. So you can obviously understand why this would be so difficult for people. Imagine this happened in the EU. The €5 note was eliminated. You'd be down to pocket change. You'd be carrying your life savings around in pocket change. If they did this in the US and got rid of the $5 note, you'd be like on your way to the world's biggest strip club with ones, just everything in ones. And this is what they did in India. They gave no advance notice. They didn't say, hey, make sure you bring it in, make arrangements. They said, hey, under different circumstances, 2,000, 4,000 rupees, you can bring it in. It's still not clear. Is that per day? How long does that last? Is that one per person we can bring in 4,000 and exchange it? The idea is they want to smoke people out who've been holding on to cash. Of course, in a lot of these countries, the smart people who are hiding all their money are not hiding it in rupees. They're hiding it in dollars. They're buying gold jewelry. They're moving it overseas. They're doing the stuff that we're talking about. So this won't even necessarily crack down on a lot of the problem. But what it will do is make it nearly impossible for people in India to hold on to any kind of cash. I mean, you're going to be carrying around, it's going to be like in Venezuela, you have to carry around like a wheelbarrow of money to buy a pizza, because they want to do this to basically have a war on cash in order to fight two scapegoats. Now, you see this happening in parts of Europe where you can't legally buy a car, you can't do other things, you can't do a lot of stuff with cash. And so, all right, I'm back, and we've moved back to the comfort of my hotel after the gentleman you heard shouting at us in the first part of the video came and a little on the edge of violence. So we decided we'd come back here and be safe in the hotel. So the war on cash is happening. It's now happening in India. And I don't say this, again, to be conspiratorial, but if you run a business and think about how this is going to affect you. How is this going to affect you if you're doing business in India? How could it affect you if it happened somewhere else? I always say the idea that it can't happen here is not true. It's happening in Europe where there's severe limitations. They want you to run everything through your bank account so they can track it, so they can know what's going on. There are different theories on what they will use that for in the future. Who knows? But for the here and now, if you're a business owner, this is not good. And by the way, if you're holding cash and you're an expat, it's not good, because all the guys who were in Canada, the Indians in Canada, were saying, what do we do with this money? We can't go back to the post office today and exchange our money. It's basically worthless to us now. So this is where the offshore bank account comes in handy. You put yourself under the rules of a more favorable government, Singapore or Hong Kong or wherever else. For some people, it's the United States. For some people, it's any number of places. For some people, it's countries that you wouldn't imagine would be that safe haven. But having a safe haven where you have someone else having control of your money, where the president can't just come out and say that money you have is now worthless and we'll kind of sort of help you, but you're on your own to a certain extent. Having the offshore bank account not only allows you to diversify out of a currency that may suffer a blow. By the way, it's not just India. Brexit. If you would have had your money in Britain and not all of it was in pounds, you would have cushioned the blow when the pound started crumbling. Same thing if you think that's going to happen in the US. Same thing if you think that happens in the euro. I mean, the euro's lost a lot in the last couple of years against the dollar. So not only diversifying into other currencies, but having the power to say, someone else besides the president of the country I live in has power over what happens to my money on a day-to-day basis. Offshore banking, very simple, totally legal for pretty much every nationality that I know. Check with your tax advisor, fill out the forms. You may have to report some of it, but keeping your money and having that separation is a great diversification